In a bustling city, a young pastor named Ethan stands before his congregation. He reads a verse that many have heard before. "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future." He sees nods of agreement in the crowd. For many, this verse from Jeremiah 29 verse 11 is a personal promise from God. They see it as a divine guarantee for health, wealth, and success, a spiritual safety net that ensures everything will turn out perfectly in their individual lives. It's a source of comfort printed on coffee mugs, inspirational posters, and graduation cards. People cling to it in times of hardship, believing it means God has a specific, blissful blueprint for their personal journey, and that any current struggle is just a temporary detour on the road to inevitable prosperity. They interpret prosper in modern terms, thinking of financial stability, a successful career, or a happy family life. The verse feels like a cosmic pat on the back, a confirmation that they are special and that a wonderful, tailor-made future awaits them, free from any real or lasting harm. This understanding is deeply personal and provides immense hope, assuring them that God is actively managing their life for their own personal good. But to truly understand what was happening, we need to travel back in time. The words weren't whispered to an individual having a bad day. They were part of a letter written by the prophet Jeremiah, sent to the Jewish people who had been forcibly exiled from their homeland and were now captives in Babylon. This wasn't a minor setback. It was a national catastrophe. Their homes were destroyed, their temple was in ruins, and they were living as prisoners in a foreign, hostile land. They had lost everything and felt abandoned by God. The "you" in this verse is plural, addressed to the entire nation of Israel in exile. The promise wasn't about an individual getting a promotion or finding a soulmate. It was a long-term, generational promise to a displaced people. God was telling them that despite their current suffering, which was a direct consequence of their collective disobedience, He had not forgotten them. He was instructing them to settle down in Babylon, to build houses, plant gardens, and raise families, because their exile would last for 70 years. The hope and a future He promised wasn't an immediate rescue. It was the assurance that after 7 decades, He would bring their descendants back to their homeland and restore them as a nation. The prosper here, from the Hebrew word shalom, meant much more than material wealth. It signified wholeness, well-being, completeness, and peace for the entire community, not just personal gain for one person. It was a corporate promise of national restoration, a light at the end of a very long and dark tunnel for a people in collective despair. The reason this verse is so widely misunderstood is because of a deep-seated human desire for personal reassurance and the way we tend to read ancient texts through a modern, individualistic lens. We've been conditioned by our culture to see ourselves as the main character in our own story, so when we read the Bible, we naturally look for verses that speak directly to our personal situation. We pull sentences out of their historical and literary context and apply them like a spiritual band-aid to our immediate problems. The context of Jeremiah is one of judgment and corporate punishment. The verses leading up to this famous promise are filled with harsh warnings and descriptions of the devastation that has befallen the nation. But people conveniently skip over the difficult parts about 70 years of exile and the reasons for it, fast-forwarding straight to the comforting promise. The emotional appeal of the verse is so powerful that it overshadows its original meaning. It feels good to believe that God has a perfect, prosperous plan just for you right now. This individualistic reading is also fueled by a prosperity gospel theology that has become popular, which teaches that faith will be rewarded with material wealth and health. Jeremiah 29 verse 11 becomes a pillar of this belief, a supposed divine contract for personal success. We forget that the Bible is a story of God's relationship with humanity, and especially with His chosen people, Israel, not just a collection of inspirational quotes for individuals. The misunderstanding stems from a failure to ask crucial questions. Who was this written to? Why was it written? What was the situation they were in? Without that context, the verse is stripped of its true power and is reshaped to fit our personal wishes. And so, we're left with a quiet reflection. Understanding the original context of Jeremiah 29 verse 11 doesn't diminish its power, it deepens it. The verse is not a flimsy guarantee that bad things will never happen to you, or that you'll get everything you want. Instead, it reveals something far more profound about the nature of God. It shows us a God who is faithful even when his people are not. It speaks of a God whose plans are vast, spanning generations, and whose ultimate goal is restoration and redemption, even in the midst of suffering and consequence. It teaches us that God's shalom, his peace and wholeness, is a communal goal, something we are meant to seek for our communities as much as for ourselves. The hope it offers isn't a hope for an easy life, but the hope that God is sovereign over history and that he is working towards an ultimate good, even when we can't see it for decades. It encourages patience, communal responsibility, and a long-term perspective. It shifts our focus from "what's in it for me" to "what is God doing in the world and how can I be a part of it?" This verse, in its proper context, becomes a powerful reminder that our personal stories are woven into a much larger, grander narrative of God's redemptive work for all of his people throughout history, a truth far more comforting and enduring than any promise of personal fleeting prosperity.